Caitlin, they said on the broadcast tonight that you were not going to play overseas. You were going to take some time. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that decision?
Yeah, it's definitely different for me. I feel like basketball has really consumed my life for a year, so I feel like it'll be good for me to kind of reflect back on everything that's happened. Like, I feel like I didn't even have time to really reflect on my college career because it ended so fast, and then I came here and was trying to give everything I could to this team and kind of move on and put all that behind me and help this team, get back to the playoffs. So I feel like taking some time to myself and really enjoying that and reflecting back.
European basketball has just made its most daring move yet, and the WNBA is trembling. Caitlin Clark, the rising star everyone expected to dominate the WNBA for years to come, is heading to Europe.
Feel like there could be a team overseas who would love to snatch Caitlin Clark away from us and give her a crazy offer. I mean, Ice Cube was about to give her $5 million to play in less than 10 games in the Big Three. So the money is there, and if these owners are smart with it, I could definitely see more WNBA players going overseas.
This is a game-changing moment that nobody saw coming, and the WNBA is now facing its biggest crisis in decades. What does this mean for the future of women's basketball? Is the WNBA prepared to lose its biggest star to Europe? Buckle up, because this story is about to unfold with massive consequences.
Let her cook. Y'all stop being petty. Stop being catty, because she like a double-edged sword. She couldn't tell left and right, and it's bothering y'all, and I see it. Let's go, Caitlin.
In a stunning turn of events, Caitlin Clark, the Iowa Hawkeyes phenom, and widely regarded as the future face of the WNBA, has confirmed her decision to join one of the top European basketball leagues. This announcement has sent shockwaves through the WNBA, fans and media alike.
Biggest team in Europe, but and I didn't, I knew it, but didn't know how big they were, and we travel like superstars. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That sounds like a dream. Traveling around Europe, playing basketball.
Like we went to Paris played in Paris for the EuroLeague championship.
For months, the assumption was that Clark, after her historic college career, would enter the WNBA draft and become a cornerstone of the league. So why Europe? And more importantly, what does this mean for the WNBA's future? Reports from European sports insiders suggest that Clark was lured by a lucrative offer from a major European club, one that was simply too tempting to resist. But beyond the money, it's the opportunity to compete on an international stage and the promise of unparalleled growth that Europe provides that ultimately swayed her decision.
I love the point that you made about Caitlin Clark in terms of the BS that she had to deal with off the court. We got to remember, she's been box office, she was the main attraction, and there were so many storylines that's been associated with her. Most recently, the whole thing with her and Cheryl Swoops, even though it really wasn't her, it was Cheryl Swoops and all this. Every time you turned around, there was something that she had to deal with.
Europe has long been a haven for many talented players, offering competitive play and financial stability.
During this offseason, the players are already moving around. So a couple players have already announced that they are going overseas. We have Kelsey Mitchell going to play in China, Nalissa Smith also playing in China, and Nalissa Smith is one where there was a big question mark around her if she would be returning to the Indiana Fever, but she'll be going to play in China, and Temi Fagbenle will be playing in Turkey.
Still, nobody expected a talent like Caitlin Clark to forego the WNBA in favor of playing overseas.
Instead of owning the fact that what really was their objective and what really was their agenda is that they resented the fact that this young lady who came into the league, took it by storm, and drew in a level of attention that they weren't able to draw.
Historically, the European leagues have been seen as a great alternative for players who want to maximize their earnings while experiencing a different style of basketball. While the WNBA struggles with salary caps and limited media exposure compared to other sports leagues, Europe offers lucrative contracts, sponsorship opportunities, and global recognition. For Clark, a player whose game transcends borders, the allure of playing in front of an international audience, with the possibility of competing against some of the world's best players, may have been the ultimate tipping point.
None of it addresses my point. My point is, she's the golden goose. You have been clamoring for attention. You've been clamoring for more cachet, fair and equitable treatment, chartered jets, weight room facilities, dollars, marketing opportunities, etc., etc.
Clark's decision also reflects a growing trend among athletes to explore opportunities outside of the United States. From the men's NBA players like Luka Doncic making their mark on the world stage, to more women athletes seeking greener pastures abroad, this trend raises a red flag for the WNBA.
Put some meat on those bones. Via Forbes, okay, they have the highest audience they've seen in 24 seasons in the WNBA games. Televised games with Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever averaged 1.18 million viewers compared to 394,000 for all other games. There were a record 22 games that averaged over 1 million viewers, 19 of which involved Caitlin.
If players like Clark are finding greater value overseas, what does this say about the WNBA's ability to retain top-tier talent? With Caitlin Clark heading to Europe, the WNBA now faces a crisis like never before. The league has been relying on stars like Clark to generate buzz, attract viewership, and inspire a new generation of players.
And so the fact that she was getting all of that, yet all of these eyeballs were coming to the league because of her. The Indiana Fever was turning away games into home games.
Without her, the WNBA may struggle to maintain the momentum it has been building over the past few years. Critics have long pointed to the WNBA's structural issues, salary discrepancies, limited marketing, and lack of global visibility.
During her exit interview, Storm player Gabby Williams warned the WNBA, if you want to keep international players, you need to do better. So here's what she had to say.
The W thinks that they don't have to pay us more in order for us to be here. And I think I didn't express that when I first talked about prioritization. You know, our commissioner talked about us being able to, you know, make 700,000. That's not true at all. There's not one player who makes that. And we were promised, you know, team marketing agreements and legal marketing agreements, but they've fallen quite short. So it's still not enough for us international players to want to stay here. And that's a choice of the players. If I make a choice to make more money and whatever, and then the, you know, teams are mad that I don't come back, but that's how it is. So yes, it just, the WNBA, you know, if you want us to be here, you have to pay us more.
As reasons why the league may not be able to compete with international opportunities. Clark's departure is now shining a harsh light on these issues. But it goes deeper than just one player. Clark's decision could open the floodgates for other top WNBA players to explore similar opportunities overseas. If the WNBA is unable to keep its best talent, how can it hope to compete on a global stage? Is this just the beginning of a much larger talent drain from the WNBA to European leagues?
Specifically, a lot of these casual fans who have come into watching the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark, who plays a smooth style of basketball, who shoots from really far away, who makes great passes, who handles the ball well. People are coming for a style of play that is similar to that. They are not looking for post players to be posting up on one another, drop step, one step to the basket, cheap shots, fouls, slow style of basketball. They want to see a run and gun game, and I think that that is the most exciting way to watch a women's game.
One of the biggest factors that pushed Caitlin Clark toward Europe is the financial difference between playing in the WNBA and top-tier European leagues. While the WNBA has made strides in increasing player salaries, it still pales in comparison to what is being offered overseas. For a player of Clark's caliber, the financial disparity is too big to ignore. In Europe, clubs are not bound by the same salary cap restrictions as the WNBA. Top European teams are known to pay their stars millions of dollars annually, figures that the WNBA can't match. In addition, European clubs often offer more flexible contracts, allowing players to earn additional income through sponsorship deals and off-season bonuses. For Clark, this presented an opportunity that she could not pass up. The WNBA now faces its biggest challenge yet: how to retain its top talent in an increasingly competitive global market.
But we should have been giving her the credit. We saw the ratings, we saw the merchandise sales, we saw the attendance, but y'all want to make it about something else. Oh, what about the women that laid the foundation? What about this? What about it? That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is box office. She's doing this. And instead of giving her credit, y'all tried to make it about, oh, y'all poo-pooing the old guard.
The league has already taken steps to address the issue, such as negotiating higher player salaries and offering more marketing opportunities. But these changes may not be enough. Clark's decision is a wake-up call for the WNBA, one that demands a rapid response if they hope to prevent a mass exodus of talent. One potential solution could be restructuring the league's financial model. The WNBA may need to find ways to offer more competitive salaries to its star players, possibly through new revenue-sharing models or additional corporate sponsorships. Additionally, the league could focus on expanding its international presence to compete with European clubs on a global scale. If the WNBA can't offer more financially, it must at least offer more exposure and opportunities for growth to keep its players at home. Caitlin Clark's move to Europe could set off a domino effect, with more top-tier players choosing to take their talents overseas. Already, rumors are swirling that other WNBA stars are considering offers from European teams.
The WNBA season ending for many teams, there are already so many players heading overseas to play during the off-season. But with all of the drama currently surrounding the WNBA, on top of the low-paying salaries, some of these players are questioning if they'll even return.
Could we see a mass migration of talent from the WNBA to Europe in the coming years? The WNBA has been steadily growing its fan base and presence, but losing its best players to Europe would undoubtedly hurt the league's progress. If more players follow Clark's lead, the WNBA will need to take drastic measures to protect its future. Without its brightest stars, the league may struggle to maintain the level of competition and excitement that fans have come to expect. Fans across the globe are shocked by the news of Caitlin Clark's departure. Many WNBA fans were eagerly anticipating Clark's entry into the league, expecting her to become the face of women's basketball in the U.S.
General population. There is a belief on the part of some that this Caitlin Clark, because she's white and straight, is upsetting.
Now, with her playing in Europe, fans are left wondering what could have been. The fan base is divided. Some are outraged, calling for the WNBA to do more to keep its top talent at home. Others understand Clark's decision, recognizing the financial and professional benefits of playing overseas. Regardless of where they stand, fans will no doubt be closely watching the WNBA's next steps in response to this crisis. Caitlin Clark's decision to play in Europe instead of the WNBA has forever changed the trajectory of her career. While some critics argue that she has abandoned the WNBA, others believe that this move will only enhance her legacy as a global icon.
Promotions, being hesitant to put her at the forefront of the league. I think the WNBA has missed a huge opportunity. And the only reason, Megan, that we're talking about it and you're talking about the WNBA is because of Caitlin Clark.
Clark now has the chance to prove herself on an international stage, further solidifying her status as one of the greatest women's basketball players in history. But what does this mean for her future? Could this be a temporary move before eventually returning to the WNBA? Or will Caitlin Clark establish herself as a long-term player in Europe, perhaps even becoming a catalyst for more women athletes to follow in her footsteps? Caitlin Clark has made her move, shaking up the basketball world in ways we never expected. But the real question is, will the WNBA survive this blow? Will more players follow in her footsteps and leave the league in crisis? Stay tuned, because the future of women's basketball is hanging in the balance.
With the WNBA season ending for many teams, there are already so many players heading overseas to play during the off-season. But with all of the drama currently surrounding the WNBA, on top of the low-paying salaries, some of these players are questioning if they'll even return.
Buckle up, because Caitlin Clark has just sent shockwaves through the sports world by packing her bags for Europe. And now ESPN and the WNBA are left scrambling in panic mode. How did they let a generational talent slip through their fingers? Why is Clark ditching the WNBA for Europe? And what does this mean for the future of the league? Let's break down how ESPN's incompetence, the WNBA's failure, and Caitlin Clark's ultimate power move have set off a domino effect that could change women's basketball forever. In a jaw-dropping move that no one saw coming, Caitlin Clark has signed a mega contract with a European team, and the WNBA is in full-blown crisis mode.
But you still complaining about the max salary being $250,000.
You're still complaining about the absence of eyeballs. You're still complaining about the lack of headlines and notoriety and pub and cachet. You're complaining about all of these things.
ESPN is reeling, trying to figure out how they fumbled their chance to keep her in the league. And now Clark, one of the brightest stars in women's basketball, is heading overseas. But make no mistake, this isn't just a career move. This is a statement. For months, Caitlin Clark has been the face of the WNBA, the player drawing in record-breaking crowds and carrying a struggling league on her back. Yet despite all of her efforts, the league failed her. Clark has been vocal about the physical toll of playing in the WNBA, saying, "I feel like I'm getting hammered out there."
She's faced at the professional level and voiced frustration with the league's officiating, recently telling reporters, quote, "I feel like I'm getting hammered and everybody is physical with me, and opponents get away with things that other people don't get away with." That's what Caitlin Clark said.
And the officiating has done nothing to protect her. She's been pushed, shoved, elbowed, treated more like a fighter in a boxing ring than a basketball player. Now, after enduring a season of brutality and mistreatment, Clark has had enough, and she's taking her talents to Europe, where she'll be properly valued and respected. ESPN, which treated Clark as just another player during her WNBA stint, is now acting like they've been her biggest cheerleader all along. Suddenly, they're scrambling to cover her exit and pretend they didn't overlook the biggest star women's basketball has seen in decades. For months, ESPN downplayed her achievements, giving her lukewarm coverage while she was out there, breaking records, and turning the WNBA into must-see TV. Now, as Clark heads to Europe, ESPN is scrambling to figure out how they missed the boat. Too little, too late. Clark's decision to leave the WNBA wasn't just about the lack of protection on the court. It was about respect. And ESPN, they failed to give her the platform she deserved when it mattered most. The game she played against the New York Liberty pulled in 1.5 million viewers, more than some NBA games on TNT, but ESPN never treated Clark like the megastar she is. Instead, they're now left trying to salvage the mess they created.
If Caitlin Clark is the quote-unquote savior, if she's the golden girl, milk it!
The WNBA's failure to keep Caitlin Clark is one of the biggest missteps in the league's history. Before Clark, the Indiana Fever was struggling to attract even 3,000 fans per game. But when Clark stepped on the court, everything changed. The Fever's attendance skyrocketed by 400%, pulling in 177,000 fans, making them the league's attendance leader both at home and on the road. Clark was a walking cash cow for the WNBA, and they let her slip away. The league failed to protect their star, ignored the blatant fouls against her, and allowed her to be treated like a punching bag every time she played. Remember the eye poke incident? In her very first WNBA playoff game, Clark was poked in the eye, and yet the referees didn't even stop the game to review it. No foul, no flagrant. Just a shrug from the officials as Clark was left to fend for herself.
During the first 2 minutes of the first round playoff game of the Connecticut Sun versus the Indiana Fever, Dejanay Carrington poked Caitlin Clark in the eye. Caitlin fell to the ground. She was holding her face. The refs did not call a foul. They didn't call a flagrant foul. The play continued. But now a lot of people online are asking for the WNBA to review this play because as multiple angles have come out of this play, it seems like it might have been intentional.
The WNBA could have built an empire around Caitlin Clark, made her the face of the league, and drawn in a new generation of fans.
A lot of this noise came by people that were sitting on this network. They tried to minimize her, said, well, you giving her all this credit. What about the women that came before her? What the women came before her, what they did cannot be taken away. That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark.
But instead, they let her endure a season of physicality that bordered on abuse. And now they're left scrambling to figure out how they let their brightest star walk away.
It's important that we point this out. One of the things that I brought up this morning in talking about Caitlin Clark is that some of the players, you want to use the word jealousy, fine. You want to use the word envy, fine. You want to use the word resentment. We want to play with words. That's cool.
Let's not forget Clark's final game in the WNBA playoffs, where she put on a one-woman show with 29 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds. Meanwhile, her teammates were missing open shots and making boneheaded plays that would make a high school coach cringe. It was clear as day, Clark was the only thing keeping the Indiana Fever alive, but she couldn't carry the team alone. Clark's decision to leave the WNBA wasn't just about the physicality of the game, it was about the lack of support from the league, her team, and even the media. She was their meal ticket, the one player who turned the WNBA into a spectacle worth watching, and they treated her like she was expendable. Now she's off to Europe, where her talent will be appreciated and she won't have to endure the same mistreatment. As if things couldn't get worse, WNBA star Alyssa Thomas threw gasoline on the fire by suggesting that Caitlin Clark's popularity was rooted in racial dynamics rather than her jaw-dropping talent. Thomas's comments sparked controversy, and ESPN, ever eager to stir the pot, ran with the narrative, framing Clark's success through the lens of race rather than focusing on her record-breaking performances.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
Clark, however, handled it with grace. She stood her ground, making it clear that her success was the result of hard work, dedication, and grit, not some cheap racial storyline. But the fact that she even had to address such baseless accusations shows just how twisted the media's coverage of her has been. Rather than celebrating her incredible accomplishments, the media chose to focus on controversy, further proving why Clark is better off leaving this toxic environment behind. Caitlin Clark's decision to head to Europe is more than just a career move. It's a signal that she's done with the drama, the mistreatment, and the disrespect she faced in the WNBA. In Europe, she'll be playing for a league that values her talent, where she'll be able to play basketball without having to constantly defend herself from dirty fouls and lackluster officiating. As for the WNBA and ESPN, they're left picking up the pieces. The WNBA could have built their entire future around Clark, made her the face of the league, and drawn in millions of new fans. Instead, they let her slip away, and now they're left with a massive void that they'll be hard-pressed to fill. ESPN, too, will feel the sting. Clark brought in juicy ratings, spiked merchandise sales, and turned the WNBA into a must-watch event. Now they're left trying to hype up players who, quite frankly, can't even come close to matching what Clark accomplished in a single season. As Caitlin Clark embarks on her new journey in Europe, ESPN and the WNBA are left scrambling to figure out how they let one of the greatest talents in women's basketball slip through their fingers. Will the WNBA ever recover from this monumental loss? Or is this just the beginning of an even bigger exodus of star players? Can ESPN salvage its reputation after sleeping on the biggest story in women's sports? One thing is for sure, Caitlin Clark is about to shine even brighter overseas, and the WNBA's loss is Europe's gain. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over.
It's going to be nice, though. I think getting out of the spotlight and just getting to live my life and do things that I want to do, and not have to sit. And I love talking to all of you, but it's going to be nice to not have to sit in front of a microphone, multiple times a week. I really appreciate all of you, but it will be nice to kind of get away and relax for a little bit. And I appreciate everything you all do as well, so I thank you.
You got me down again.
Caitlin Clark's potential departure from the WNBA to play in Europe has shocked fans and analysts alike. While her frustration with the league's physicality and officiating has been well documented, a deeper factor may be at play: the rising racial tensions within the league, specifically tied to Alyssa Thomas's recent accusations. Could this racial controversy be the final push for Clark to explore opportunities overseas? Clark's rookie season was undeniably electric, with her breaking records, lifting the Indiana Fever out of irrelevance, and propelling the WNBA into the spotlight. However, this meteoric rise came at a cost. From facing brutal physical defense to controversial no-calls, like Dijanai Carrington's infamous eye poke, Clark has felt unprotected by the league's officiating. "I feel like I'm getting hammered, and opponents get away with things that other players don't," she said in an interview after the Fever's heartbreaking playoff exit.
Yeah, I think just being competitive is who I am. It's what I've done my whole career. I think at times there's ways I can probably channel it a little bit better, but that's just basketball at the end of the day. That's never gonna change. I'm never gonna lose that. I feel like I'm getting hammered. I don't know. I appreciate Christy getting the tech too.
While the physical toll alone was draining, it's becoming evident that the environment in the WNBA, beyond the court, has been a growing source of frustration for Clark. And nothing exemplifies this more than the recent racial controversy stirred by Alyssa Thomas. After the Fever's playoff elimination, Alyssa Thomas took the stage not to discuss her team's win, but to accuse Caitlin Clark's fan base of racism. Thomas claimed that in her 11-year career, she had never experienced such vitriol, implying that Clark's sudden rise to stardom is somehow tied to racial bias.
Honestly, it's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it. And
Thomas stated, indirectly linking Clark's popularity to her predominantly white fan base. This wasn't just a comment on trolls or online hate. It was an accusation that essentially targeted the league's new fan base, many of whom had started watching because of Clark's presence. Thomas painted a picture that Clark's success and the attention she received were products of race rather than talent. For Clark, this must have felt like the ultimate slap in the face. After working tirelessly to prove herself on the court, she now found herself at the center of a racial debate she never asked for. It's not difficult to see how this racial narrative, combined with the physical play she's endured, may have been the final straw for Clark. While she's been the face of the WNBA's growth, she's also become its most controversial figure, largely due to factors beyond her control. From Alyssa Thomas's public accusations to other players using racial tensions to stir controversy, Clark is caught in a political and racial firestorm that could be pushing her to leave the league altogether. In her press conference, Clark didn't directly address the racial allegations, but she made it clear she's had enough. "I need a reset. I need to get away from all of this," she said. Many speculate that this reset could involve a move to Europe, where she could focus on her game without the external pressures that have consumed her WNBA experience.
Basketball was something I absolutely loved to do, but there was a lot of other things I had to have done in my life, whether it was school, whether it was, emptying the dishwasher or taking out the trash. I had chores, it stunk. I think it'll definitely be a little bit of an adjustment period for myself, not really, having to do that so much. I woke up yesterday, I'm I don't know what I'm gonna really do. So it's gonna be nice though. I think getting out of the spotlight and just getting to live my life and do things that I wanna do and, not have to sit and I love talking to all of you, but it's gonna be nice to not have to sit in front of a microphone.
Europe could offer Clark the chance to play in a league with a different focus and potentially a more balanced environment, free from the racial tensions that have started to define her WNBA journey. Clark's possible move to Europe isn't just a personal decision, it's a potential disaster for the WNBA. Since joining the league, Clark has transformed the Fever into a money-making machine. Attendance for Indiana games skyrocketed by 400%, ticket sales surged by 60%, and her jersey became the top seller in league history. Her games drew millions of viewers, eclipsing even matchups featuring other WNBA stars like Breanna Stewart and A'ja Wilson. Clark wasn't just a player, she was the league's main attraction. Losing her would be a financial and public relations nightmare for the WNBA. With Clark considering an exit, the league is staring down the barrel of losing its biggest draw and, potentially, its new fan base. But beyond the economic impact, Clark's departure would expose the deep issues that have been festering within the WNBA: race, politics, and the struggle for equality within a league that has long prided itself on inclusivity. Clark leaving the WNBA would be a signal that the league isn't ready to protect and nurture its top talent. It could also set a dangerous precedent for other players who feel unsupported or unfairly targeted. If the WNBA can't resolve the tension brewing within its ranks, more players may begin to look elsewhere. But for now, all eyes are on Clark. Will she pack her bags and head to Europe? If she does, it won't just be a career shift. It will be a turning point for the WNBA. What do you think? Is Caitlin Clark justified in considering a move to Europe? Let me know in the comments below.